Well, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone who wants to listen to this or watch this video. Thank you very much for watching again. And if you like what you're seeing or you're reading or listening, please leave a like. And once again, I'm your boy Shrimp, and here I am going to do my digital art once again. I'm gonna continue my concept art that I left off last time that I recorded. So right now, uh, once again, we're going to tackle the art with some adventure while listening to the Death Mage who doesn't want a fourth time. Uh, Excuse me, I think I've forgotten the title again. Okay, here we go. The Death Mage who doesn't want a fourth time. Okay, I actually kind of got that from the first time. Okay, anyways, so yeah, that's the story. And yeah, if anyone who is interested of the story, you can read it in Novels.pl or to any kind of a website that's offering web novels or light novels. So in this site, I can actually use a audiobook system where I can just listen to the story while doing my art. So you can enjoy the story as well as I do my art. So anyway, guys, without any further ado, let's just start with the story and with a concept art. I am going to continue. So this is what we left off from last time. Okay, I actually did a number for the sketch already. I actually really like how it turned out. So, but still need some finishing up and some more upgrades here and there. But yeah, probably I'll start um, the values or yeah, the shadowing or the lighting for this design so that we can figure out where to put the shadows and all of the lighting, where the source of light is, and yeah, so that we can gain some more depth where this design or this concept art will go. But right now I'm going to finish the sketch first. I kind of really like how I did the ruins at the back over here. Let's just continue finishing this up. Okay, so yeah, I'll turn down the music and I'll play the audiobook for us. We're at chapter 9 right now. Once again, I'm going to adjust the speed to 1.15, and yeah, I could say that this is at an optimal speed always. Nice. Okay, so anyway, guys, let's proceed with our drawing and with the story.
Chapter 9, The Second Life That Begins After Death. My name is Sam. I was once a coachman who looked after horses for a certain nobleman. Serving a nobleman is not as prosperous a lifestyle as commoners may think. Well, I am a commoner myself. However, I had to take care not to embarrass my master, lest his reputation be questioned, and so I was provided with a proper uniform and I was guaranteed meals to eat each day. In that regard, I was indeed blessed. I am especially happy with the fact that I met my wife who was working at his mansion, and under my master's encouragement, I wed her and was blessed with 2 daughters. My older daughter Sario was well-mannered, and my younger daughter Ita grew up to be energetic and cheerful. And then my daughters also entered the employment of the same noble family as I, and we were truly happy. However, one winter, my wife was among those afflicted by an epidemic and passed away within a few days. Before I even had time to recover from the sadness of that event, my master lost his footing on the stairs and also passed away, and someone else took his place. The one who succeeded that noble family seemed to be unhappy with the previous generation's ways. They declared that they would be changing the servants, and my daughters and I were dismissed. I thought that for me, who has only looked after horses and been a coachman all my life, it would be possible for me to live as a coachman for a stagecoach in the city, and decided to boldly enter an unfamiliar land. My daughters, too, followed me in hope of finding good marriage proposals and employment in the city. However, in the midst of our journey, we were attacked by a group of bandits. My daughters were violated by those beasts before my very eyes, and then we were killed. Our bodies were burned so as not to attract animals and monsters, and then thrown away. That must have been incredibly harsh. Saria and Rita still have their appearance from the time that they were burned. Of course, we resented those bandits. We lingered here, intending to stay until we saw their destruction. If there had been a devil's nest nearby, we might have been transformed into evil spirits by its mana. However, we simply felt pure hatred for those men, and the days went by with us not being able to do anything. And then one day, my current master Vandali-sama and his servants attacked their hideout and slaughtered them all. So I myself am now one of Gosujin-sama's servants. One would never expect to be living a second life after death. And the fact that this horse caretaker and coachman is now in a dungeon is very surprising. Gosujin-sama, I have heard that strong monsters appear more frequently inside dungeons than outside. Please let me know if you feel that it is too dangerous. My new body is the carriage that the bandits stole from me. However, it is a 3-horse carriage with its width as its only redeeming quality, and other than the cloth roof overhead, it is no different from a wagon. But since I am haunting it, despite it being a horse-drawn carriage, it can move backwards if needed. It is therefore easy to make an escape. Alright. By the way, I was thinking about this earlier. Can you not call me Gosujin-sama? My master Vandali speaks to me from the back of the carriage, but what would he like me to call him instead? Would a bochin be preferable? No, that's not it. Vandali is just shy. After all, there aren't many spirits who would speak to him of their own accord like you, Sam-san. Dasa, is that so? I see. As Vandali-sama's mother Dasa-sama says, none of his servants other than me can talk to him. This is not a matter of courtesy or manners, they are actually unable to speak. Bone Man and Bone Monkey are haunted with the spirits of small animals, not people. They can convey their general feelings, but not speak words. Jaiwa. Also, nobody but Vandali-sama can see them, but he is also being followed by countless spirits, including my daughters. However, though they would respond if Vandali-sama were to talk to them, they are unable to speak to him themselves. This is because when one becomes a spirit, it is very easy to become dominated by a single emotion. And without intervention, it is normal to repeat the same behavior endlessly. My daughters are no exception. Jei. However, since I am Bochin's servant, it is only natural that I should show respect to you. And if I were to behave like Bone Man and the others, you would be displeased. Would you not? Bone Man's outward appearance is that of a human skeleton. However, since the spirits inside him are those of small animals, Bochin sometimes pats him and spoils him in his free time. Gijagagagaga. Since Bochin can see spirits, he does not seem discomforted by this, but there would be a problem if it were me. If I, a middle-aged man in his 40s with thinning hair, were to say Bochin, pet me or something of that sort, he would most certainly feel hesitant about that. Ah, indeed. Then, Bochin will be fine. He looks strangely unsatisfied, but we have come to an agreement. Guggy. Incidentally, the unpleasant death cries that have been rising up are those of the goblin soldiers that I have been running over. Goblin soldiers are rank 2 monsters, goblins that have developed enough intelligence to hold weapons. Rank 1 goblins also wield sticks sometimes, but they are nothing more than tree branches. One cannot say that they have any kind of technique. Even if a goblin were to luckily get its hands on a sword or a spear, it would swing it no differently from a tree branch. Goblin soldiers are goblins that are capable of wielding a sword like a sword, a spear like a spear and a stick like a stick. However, their skill is amateur level, and any skilled, experienced adventurer or soldier would be able to defeat them one-on-one. They are quite similar in appearance to regular goblins, so apparently there are incidents where farmers and hunters carelessly try to drive them away and become overwhelmed. However, these goblin soldiers are not worthy enemies to face Bone Man, Bone Wolf and Bone Bird, who have already become a rank 3 skeleton soldier, Bone Beast and Phantom Bird. As they appear, they have their heads split by a sword, are torn to pieces by fangs and shot down by spirit feathers. The undead throw the ones that are still barely breathing in front of my wheels. Thanks to this, I am also able to attain some experience points. Gigagigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigiggigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigigi What a wonderful sensation! Though I am embarrassed to admit it, I may become addicted to this. I hope you don't. It would be a problem if we were to run someone over by accident. Ah, but it's alright to run over bandits. Thank you very much. I will crush bandits beneath my wheels. My heart beats with excitement just imagining this. Incidentally, Bone Monkey and Bone Bear are protecting the back of the carriage while prudently checking to see if any magic stones have been generated. Since they are rank 2 monsters, around 1 in 5 monsters drop magic stones. For goblin soldiers and goblin archers to be appearing on the first floor, it seems that this is a rather dangerous dungeon after all. Goblin archers are goblins that wield bows and arrows instead of melee weapons, and are also rank 2 monsters. I don't feel any danger, though. It may seem that way because the undead are defeating them as soon as they appear, but it is quite unusual to encounter more than 4 time being in a dungeon as well. Dasa-sama was an adventurer in her past life, but it seems that she acted solo, so she does not have any experience in clearing dungeons. However, this number of monsters may be because not many adventurers have attempted to clear this dungeon. That happens occasionally. When there are wars and the adventurers have to work as mercenaries, or when there is a large-scale emergency request and more people are needed, or when there is no profit to be had from a dungeon so adventurers are unmotivated to clear it. Well, if the only monsters that appear are goblins, then it's not likely that they would be rewarded for their efforts. Humans are creatures that don't act if there is no benefit for them. You are wise, Botchan. You do not seem like a 1-year-old child at all, so please take care around other people. You're right, but he does keep talking like an adult. Even though he never actually became an adult in his previous life or the one before that, so I wonder who he learned it from. Ah, it seems that I've reached my limit today, so I'm counting on you, Sam-san. Good night, Vandali. Certainly. Good night, Mom. Even as Dasa-sama goes to rest in the bone that contains her spirit, we continue our expedition into this dungeon. However, there are no fierce battles unfolding, and our exploration goes smoothly. The first level's walls and floor were made of stone and only goblin soldiers and archers have been appearing. There were 14 of them, but the only casualty we have suffered was a chip in the blade of Bone Man's sword. Our spoils are 6 magic stones. The second floor seems more like a natural cave, and though the first floor's ceiling was glowing a little, the second floor is pitch black. Adventurer parties would normally use torches, lanterns or the torch spell, but all of us, including Botchan, possess the dark vision skill. We can see more clearly in complete darkness than in dim lighting, so this is actually more beneficial for us. The monsters that are appearing are monsters that are like animals and bugs whose body lengths have grown over a meter, such as giant bats, giant moles, giant worms and giant spiders. Goblins are not appearing here. All of the monsters other than the giant spiders are rank 1, and even if we were to find ourselves in a nest of the rank 2 spiders, we would defeat them easily, so we do not have much trouble at all. However, there are no raw materials to be obtained and these monsters are particularly unsuitable for eating. The only thing we attained was a single magic stone from a giant spider. The third floor that we have descended to is a wetland. Despite our surprise, the sight and smell of water and dirt are real. When we look up at the sky, there is even a sun-like light source. While we are still wondering whether we could possibly still be underground, Dasa-sama awoke and informed us dungeons are apparently these kinds of places. If she says so, then that must be the case, I thought. But Botchan had his head tilted to one side for a while. Putting that aside, the monsters appearing on the third floor are all rank 1 monsters that one might expect to see in a wetland, such as giant slugs, big frogs, giant leeches, giant lizards, so I assumed that it would be easy for us. However, we encounter rank 2 monsters further in. Acid slugs, slugs that release acidic mucus. Poison frogs that secrete neurotoxins from their tongues. Dagger finches, small birds with quick movements and a sharp beak that could easily pierce a human's body. Though these monsters are rank 1 and 2, they are clearly much more dangerous enemies than goblin soldiers. However, they still have no chance against Bone Man and the others, who are rank 3. Our only casualty was Bone Man's sword, which fell to pieces when he swung it at an acid slug, mistaking it for a giant slug. Having Bone Man's weapons degrade every time he cuts one of the acid slugs down is a waste, so Botchan buried them alive using mud golems. The rest of the enemies were easily defeated. poison does not work against the undead who are made of just bones, and even when the dagger finches poke holes in the bones, the damaged bones are easily replaced. Of course, the same applies for me, since my body is a carriage. Having some holes poked in my canopy does not affect me in the slightest. The one who has to sew it back together later is me, though. I apologize, Botchan. Our harvest is 7 rank 2 magic stones as well as the hind legs and internal organs of the giant frogs and poison frogs. And the beaks of the dagger finches. These beaks can easily become a knife blade or a spearhead just by attaching a handle. The hind legs of 2 species of frog are a great delicacy, and their organs are used as ingredients in medicines. The dismantling of the monsters was conducted by Bone Monkey and Bone Man. They crushed several organs and broke a number of beaks, but overall it went quite well. Will you make medicine, Botchan? I don't know how, so that's impossible. For now, I'll use the preservation spell on them and keep them in a sack. Using death attribute magic, it is possible to preserve for several years the organs that would normally spoil very easily. How very convenient. I'll have grilled frog legs for food today. First, let's start a fire. Botchan, you will not use demon light? Unfortunately, demon light doesn't produce any heat. Actually, it absorbs heat, so it'll actually get colder. But it seems even death attribute magic is not omnipotent. Though at least he can stay cool in the summer. Bone Monkey burned one of the legs, but Botchan said they were delicious as he enjoyed them. It tastes better than rabbit blood. Botchan, that comparison is not helpful at all. The 4th floor is another cave, and the monsters that appear here are all undead. They are not rank 1 living dead and living bones, but powerful rank 3 skeleton soldiers, zombie warriors, bone beasts and wraiths that are immune to physical attacks. Oh, such terrifying undying beasts. Sam, you're an undead as well. Now that you mention it, you are correct. It seems that we are in for a difficult battle this time, but as I am about to suggest that we return to the previous floor to think of a strategy, something surprising happens. The skeletons and zombies move aside and make a path for us. I can pass through? The skeletons with blue flames in their eye sockets and the muddy-eyed zombies give a groan as if to answer Botchan's question, and drop their weapons. Their rusty weapons drop onto the ground with an echoing clang, and there is no further response from these undead. Sam, everyone, let's move on. Is this alright? Perhaps it is some kind of trap? I don't sense any bloodthirst, so I think it's fine. I trust in Botchan's danger sense, death magic and proceed onwards, and the undead really do not attempt to attack us. Other than slowly picking their weapons back up as we pass, they show no further movements. I'm sure those guys came to like Vandally, too. As expected of Botchan. Well, isn't it just the normal effect of my death attribute charm skill? Though I didn't expect it to work on already raised undead. This 4th floor contains nothing but undead monsters that show no signs of wanting to attack Botchan, so we continue our expedition with no obstructions. Of course, we do not attain any magic stones and such either, but compared to having to fight against rank 3 monsters, this is a welcome turn of events. Vandally, it's a treasure chest. Treasure chests really appear in dungeons, don't they? So it seems. Just who would leave them there? I don't know about that. Maybe they're the Demon King's traps to lure humans into danger, or the Genie Ricolant's way of motivating humans to improve themselves by giving them the treasure chests as a reward for their training. There are a few theories. It seems that treasure chests appear in dungeons depending on the floor. It is unknown as to why they appear, but valuable goods are contained within them and they are fuel that warms the hearts of adventurers. Of course, the treasure chests are locked and sometimes there are traps set on them. Getting through those is the job of a thief. But we have no thieves among us. Well, I guess we'll open it awaken. Even so, Botchan finds a way. Even without a thief, he can have spirits haunt the treasure chest itself and have it open the lock and undo the traps itself. It costs 10,000 mana to open one treasure chest. Therefore, this is a method well suited for Botchan, who possesses a tremendous mana pool. The contents are what is this? On first glance, it seems like poison. What is contained in the treasure chest is a blue fluid in an expensive glass bottle. Oh, if this isn't a potion, and quite a high-class one. Botchan, this is no poison. It is a potion. A potion, you mean an item that heals injuries? That's right, if you drink it or apply it to wounds, they heal right away, so they're essential items for adventurers. Yes, Dasa-sama. I have never seen such a high-quality product, even in the noble family that I once served. Potions have a number of grades, and the typical 5th grade potion heals for 30 vitality. Most merchants and soldiers carry one of these with them, and adventurers and mercenaries always include them as part of their inventory. However, 4th grade potions are more expensive, and noblemen have 3rd grade potions in reserve. Of course, these potions have effects reflecting their high price. You can tell a quality of a potion by its color. The brighter blue it is, the higher quality. If it's darker, it's lower quality. This color should be a 2nd grade potion, I suppose. To find a 2nd grade potion, one must find it at a store in a large city such as the imperial capital of the Amid Empire, or order it directly from a skilled alchemist. The price for one of these will not be any lower than 100,000 Amid. 100,000. How is its effect? It won't let you regrow a limb that's been cut off, but it should heal most wounds you apply it to. If you drink it, it will heal not only your injuries, but also relieve fatigue and restore a little mana. It will also cure some poisons and illnesses. What about the taste? The higher quality the potion, the worse it tastes. Indeed, there was a legendary adventurer who once drank a high-grade potion and fell unconscious due to its terrible taste. When he opened his eyes, he said that it would have been better if he had died. With that in mind, I cannot blame Botchan for mistaking the potion for poison at first. They say that good medicine is bitter to the tongue, but isn't that a little too bitter? I did not have the experience of drinking a potion while I was alive, and I am fortunate that I am unable to drink it now. It seems that Botchan has also realized that this potion is not to be consumed. Following this, we found more treasure chests and attained the treasure inside. All of the items contained inside them seemed considerably high-class items. With that said, I cannot be sure, as I am but a horse caretaker and a coachman, and cannot judge the value of some items. This is probably a magic item. This is probably also a magic item. Ah, this is just a gem. No, could it be a magic item? Botchan, you are saying probably quite frequently. I'm just over a year old, I hope you're not expecting me to have a good eye for judging these things. But if you include your previous life and the one before that, are you not almost 40 years of age? Several days ago, Botchan told Dasa-sama, my daughters and myself about his circumstances. Though it was surprising to hear, he possesses a tremendous mana pool for a 1-year-old, even if he is a damp. Furthermore, he is using some unknown magic that nobody has taught him. These things are far more surprising. Of course, Botchan also explained the future risks that he faces, but neither Dasa-sama nor I feel any intention of separating ourselves from him. To me, Botchan is my savior and master. Botchan requires my carriage, so how can I abandon my duty? Furthermore, if I were to separate myself from Botchan, I would be nothing but a stray undead monster. That might be true, but there was no magic on Earth, and even though there was magic in origin, I never touched a magic item. Well, to be precise, I never touched a magic item other than laboratory equipment. That is why Botchan says that he had no chance to become good at appraising items or detecting mana. We find items one after another. A knife, a dagger, a broadsword, silver accessories, a ring with a gemstone embedded in it. However, Botchan cannot tell anything about them other than that they have some mana imbued in them, so he cannot tell how valuable they are. Also, Dasa-sama informed us, treasure chests often contain normal knives and stone necklaces, so we should be satisfied that we are finding any magic items at all. And as we descend into the 5th floor, we find ourselves in another home of the undead. Kuu. Moo. They are rank 4 undead, even stronger than the rank 3 undead that appeared on the 4th floor. A skeleton warrior with its entire body dyed red by the blood of its victims, a red skull. An orc zombie that has even more brute strength than when it was alive. A zombie that can use magic even after it has become undead, a lesser lich. And finally, a living armor that bears the hatred of the dead, moving around even though nobody is wearing it. Kuu. Ah, thanks. Excuse us. However, like the undead on the 4th floor, these rank 4 undead move close to the wall to open the way for Botchan. Ah, stop, Bone Monkey, Bone Wolf. I have a feeling there are traps on the floor. The only obstacles in our way are the traps set in the dungeon. However, with Botchan's danger sense, death, we can detect and disarm them. I feel death in that wide space on the floor, so it's probably a pitfall. If I make a golem and cover the floor, we should be fine. He makes a golem from the wall and covers the floor with it, nullifying the trap. This method of dealing with traps is only possible for Botchan. Well then, shall we continue? We discover even more treasure chests on this 5th floor than the 4th floor, and attain a number of treasures. And then we open a conspicuously large door to find an enormous room in which a very powerful monster has been waiting. It is a skeleton general, over 2 meters tall, wearing golden armor. It is holding an axe that could easily cut a cow in half, and a shield as sturdy as a castle wall. It is so impressive that it is difficult to believe its body is made of only bones. It is enough to send a chill down a spine that I do not possess. And around the skeleton general are 10 suits of living armor, like knights serving their master. This must be a dungeon boss. According to Dasa-sama, who has just awakened, bosses always appears in a dungeon. Bosses that appear at the bottom floor are particularly difficult to defeat compared to bosses that may appear on other floors. Oh, thank you for your courtesy. Eh? You're giving that to me? That's helpful, but is that really alright? But like the other undead we have encountered so far, not only does the skeleton general let us pass, but he also offers the sharp-bladed axe and shield in its hands in his devotion to Botchan. I feel bad for receiving a weapon and shield for free, so I'll give you this in return. Botchan retrieves a battle-axe and large shield from inside the carriage and hands it to the skeleton general. They are among the better-made items that the bandits were using, but they are not magic items. They are normal equipment made of metal. Just these won't quite do, so, with that, Botchan produces a large amount of mana from his body. It takes great effort to not have my consciousness swept away by its pressure. Bonebird stops flying and falls onto the ground. Right before my eyes, Botchan's mana is poured into the battle-axe, the large shield, and also the skeleton general and living armors. Oh. The skeleton general trembles in pleasure as its white skull is dyed black, and the living armors begin to emit a sinister aura. Botchan, it seems they have ranked up. Just what have you done? I just used bloodshed enhancement and energy absorption with about 10,000 times more mana than usual. Why is that? Maybe death attribute magic is just too compatible with undead. Next time I'll try it on Bone Man and the others. If he can cause monsters to rank up by expending 100,000 mana, it will be easy for Botchan, who possesses over 100 million mana, to strengthen his followers. This is a wonderful discovery. I'll try making living armor when I get my hands on some good armor, too. Bone Man can't equip metal armor, after all. Because Bone Man's body is made of only bones, he can equip flexible armor like leather armor, but he cannot wear metal armor. It is too large for him as he has no flesh, and the armor would shift around too much and get in the way as he moves his body. Because of that, we cannot use metal equipment except for shields. The nearby skeleton general is wearing full plate armor made of metal, but he is a high-rank monster. There is surely some trick behind that. But rather than trying to figure it out, it is more important for me that Botchan is planning to make more new undead. Botchan, if you are planning to do this, please use my daughters. I believe if you were to give them bodies, they would be able to speak as they did when they were alive. I think that it would be pitiful for my daughters to be spirits with the appearance of burnt corpses forever, so I take this chance to request that Botchan uses them. Saria and Rita were just mates, so they do not know how to handle weapons, but they can do housework. They are not professional chefs, but they can cook basic things. Botchan blinks and falls silent, and then gives me a reply: all right. But this is only going to happen if I get some good armor, so I think you're going to have to wait a while. I can't go into towns to buy some, and most bandits wear leather armor. I understand. Thank you very much, Botchan. I do not know how many months or years it will be, but the day may come where this father and his 2 daughters can talk to each other like they once did. That is enough hope for me. However, it seems that wish will be granted sooner than expected. Behind the door past the skeleton general is a treasure storage room containing about as much treasure as the amount that we have already collected so far. Inside there are 2 sets of good armor that Botchan wanted. Oh, if this isn't another magic item. Suits of metal armor with mana imbued in it. They are designed for female use, where other suits of armor are usually unrefined in shape. These suits of armor have elegant curves and there are decorations embedded into them. A non-adventurer such as myself would have no idea just what kind of magic is imbued in these or what kind of ability they have elegant curves and there are decorations embedded into them. A non-adventurer such as myself would have no idea just what kind of magic is imbued in these or what kind of ability they have, but I do know that they are beautiful suits of armor. Botchan, please make my daughters into living armors using this. I just want to make sure you're alright with this? With these suits of armor? Are you really sure? For some reason, Botchan seems dissatisfied. As I reply, of course, he looks at the armor again with half-closed eyes and whispers. No matter how much this is a fantasy world, I didn't expect there to be suits of armor shaped like high-leg leotards and bikinis. High-leg leotards. Bikinis. Is this what armor of this shape is called on Earth? No, they're swimsuits. I wonder if there are swimsuits in this world. Well, I suppose it's fine. Now that I think about it, it's not worth hesitating over. And so Bochin places Saria in the armor that he referred to as a high-leg leotard and Rita in the one he called a bikini, pours mana into them and successfully creates living armors. Unexpectedly, the required amount of mana was over 10 times that needed to create stone golems. But I am grateful that my daughters have received new bodies. However, this treasure storage room is a dead end. There is no staircase that continues to the next floor. It seems that this dungeon is only 5 floors deep. Our first dungeon expedition is finished, and the skeleton general sees us off as we return the way we came. On the way back, I crush more goblins that attack us and attain one of our original goals in coming here. I have now evolved into a rank 3 ghost carriage, which is a happy event. The most difficult battle I faced in this dungeon was that with the stairs that I had to go up and down. Bochin turned them into golems and made them into a steep slope that I forced my way up and down, but it was rather difficult. I had Bone Monkey and Bone Bear support me when I went down them, and push me when I climbed up. Now that I have attained the raw road travel skill, it is no longer a problem. I wonder why skills are obtained just when the time you need them most is already over. Today's spoils: Rank 2 Magic Stone X14. Goblin Archer Arrow X47. Giant Frog Hind Leg X16. Poison Frog Hind Leg X5. Dagger Finch Beak X9. 2 ND Grade Potion X2. 3 RD Grade Potion X7. Iron Knife, Weak Mana, X3. Iron Dagger, Weak Mana, X4. Buckler made of unknown material, Moderate Mana, X1. Steel Broadsword, Weak Mana, X1. Round Shield made of unknown material, Moderate Mana, X3. Tower Shield made of unknown material, Moderate Mana, X1. Longsword made of mysterious metal, Moderate Mana, X1. Steel Spear, Weak Mana, X3. Chainmail, Weak Mana, X1. Half-plate armor made of mysterious metal X1. Claymore made of mysterious metal, Moderate Mana, X1. Glaive made of mysterious metal, Moderate Mana, X1. Halberd made of mysterious metal, Moderate Mana, X1. Steel Battle Axe, Weak Mana, X1. Skeleton General's Fine Battle Axe, Slightly Weak Mana, X1. Skeleton General's Fine Kite Shield, Slightly Weak Mana, X1. Various accessories, Weak Moderate Mana, X many. Normally, we would also receive income from the proof that we killed the monsters, but because we are not adventurers, that is impossible for us. Name, Sam. Rank, 3. Race, Ghost Carriage. Level, 3, Passive Skills, Spirit Form, Level 1, New. Superhuman Strength, Level 1, New. Rough Road Travel, Level 1, New. Impact Resistance, Level 1, New. Precise Driving, Level 3, Active Skills, Silent Steps, Level 1, New. High Speed Travel, Level 1, New. Charge, Level 1, New. Monster Explanation, Ghost Carriages. These are undead consisting of a spirit that had lingering regrets in this world and now inhabits a carriage as an evil spirit. Their appearance is that of a carriage driven by horse and coachman made of mist, but the main body of the evil spirit lies in the carriage itself. The horse and coachman are but a manifestation of its spiritual body. Because of this, the only way to defeat them is to purify the evil spirit or destroy the carriage itself. Their main method of battle is a ramming attack using the carriage, or rather, this is their only method of attacking. However, depending on the type of carriage, there are some with armaments such as spikes attached. Riding in them is usually impossible as they are often reckless, but if they are ridden, they are said to be very comfortable as they possess the rough road travel and impact resistance skills. As proof of defeating one, a carriage component with a magic stone is used. The raw material that can be obtained from it is the mana-imbued carriage itself. It is seldom used as is, but when disassembled, its components have various uses. To carry the carriage intact, one would need a horse or a carriage of his own. Ghost carriages are fundamentally rare monsters, and do not normally appear in devil's nests. All known incidents of ghost carriage appearances that have occurred were stagecoaches of abandoned areas that have turned into devil's nests. Sam has attained precise driving and silent steps, which ghost carriages cannot normally attain, with the acquisition of the former being due to Sam being a professional coachman during his lifetime and the latter from moving around stealthily since becoming an undead. Thus, he has more skilled movements than normal ghost carriages and can move around very quietly. Skill explanation: Spirit form. This is a skill that allows half materialization of the soul or spirit, something that does not normally exist physically. The materialized spirit form is visible to the eye and can be touched physically. Though physical attacks do affect the spirit form, over 2/3 of their effects are nullified. Attacks using magic items or consecrated weapons are effective. There are various ways to use the half-materialized spirit form. Lower-level use extends to only using it to connect bones in place of cartilage. Just by attaining the skill, one can use it to replace muscle that has rotted and fallen off in order to strengthen the body, or decayed fur and scales in order to improve defense. To give an example, Bone Bird's materialization of its spirit form over its bone wings allows it to generate the lift required for flight, and it can fire parts of the spirit form as projectiles. Another example is Sam, who has now increased in rank to become a ghost carriage, who can use his spirit form to take the shape of a horse to increase the carriage's horsepower. Yet another example is how the skeleton general wears his metal armor. The space between the bones and the armor is filled by its spirit form. Another application of this skill is to manipulate the spirit form without materializing it to have it crawl under another person's skin or penetrate walls. Chapter 10, Armor in Both Hands. Speaking of dreams. A week after Vandali left, Cashew, leader of Thuwind Chasers who had obtained the rights to explore the dungeon first from the Adventurers Guild, entered said dungeon with his companions in high spirits. The prestige and advancement for their party that came with the rights to the first exploration were not the only reasons that they wanted it so badly. The treasures inside the dungeon were a big draw for them as well. The ranks of the monsters that appear in dungeons and the quality and value of the items that one could obtain from them are fixed to some extent. However, that only applies for dungeons that have already been discovered and have adventurers enter them regularly. The longer a dungeon went with nobody entering and clearing the monsters out, the more the monsters multiplied and killed each other, increasing the levels of those who won such internal conflicts and possibly even increasing their rank. This would make the dungeons more difficult, but the value of the items inside would also increase accordingly. This would be especially true of this dungeon, as it was an unexplored dungeon that nobody had ventured into. The first exploration of any dungeon is a high-risk venture, but one that yields high reward. For this reason, Cashew and his companions had checked their equipment and prepared for the dangers, while at the same time anticipating great rewards for their efforts. However, what they found was disappointing. On the first floor, only goblins appeared, with a few goblin soldiers and archers mixed in. They lit their lanterns and proceeded with caution through the second floor, and it gave them no trouble. The third floor was a simple matter of watching their steps through the mud. Most of the monsters appearing are rank 1. There's the occasional rank 2, but they're few in number. Isn't this one of those low-difficulty F-class dungeons? Dungeons are ranked by the Adventurers Guild based on their difficulty. This sets a standard for how many adventurers of the same class would need to form a party to clear it. An F-class dungeon is the easiest of dungeons, a labyrinth used as a training ground for novice adventurers. Of course, the rewards that could be harvested from such a dungeon would be nothing but pocket change for Cashew and his companions, who were D-class adventurers. But why have the dungeon's stairs turned into ramps? The hardest part about this dungeon is getting up and down those. Who knows? Maybe it's to train your legs. However, once they passed the third floor, they no longer had the leisure to make such idle chat. As they descended into the fourth floor, they were forced to fight for their lives. Die. Why are the rank 3 zombie soldiers and wraiths coming out all of a sudden? Cashew. There's a skeleton archer aiming at us from further inside. Hi. There's even a stone golem coming this way. Up until the third floor, Vandali had cleared the monsters once, so there were few rank 2 monsters. However, he had not defeated a single monster on the fourth floor. In addition, the stone golems that Vandali had created to avoid traps had been added to the dungeon's repertoire of monsters. And since Cashew and his companions did not possess the Death attribute charm skill, the undead attacked them fiercely. Cashew's party, Thuwind Chasers, were aiming for a promotion to class, so they had fought not only rank 3 monsters but even rank 4 monsters in the past, and they had even combined all of their members' strength to defeat rank 5 monster on one occasion. They were veterans that would be able to defeat rank 3 monsters, even if they were outnumbered 2 to 1. However, they were not strong enough to be able to continuously fight against an endless swarm of them. Cheat. We're retreating for now. Deciding to make a tactical retreat before sustaining too many losses, Kashu and his party returned to Turo and gave up on conquering the dungeon on their own, joining forces with Thestiel Wings and Thew Whitestasp for challenging the dungeon once more. With 15 D-class adventurers gathered together, they were to get through the 4th floor without difficulty and barely managed to conquer the 5th floor. However, they fought an incredibly difficult battle against the rank 6 Black Skull General and the 10 rank 4 Cursed Armors. In the end, they were forced to retreat as well, and the Adventurers Guild commissioned a class party for the first clearing of the dungeon. However, those class adventurers were disappointed. I had high hopes since this was an uncleared dungeon, but this is all we get, huh? They defeated the Black Skull General safely, but there was no treasure desirable for class adventurers in the treasure storage room. The items there were only worth loose change in their eyes. The weapon and shield used by the Black Skull General was using a problematic mana absorption ability during the battle, but they fell to pieces as soon as he was defeated, so the adventurers were unable to claim them for themselves. Undead monsters have a higher chance to yield magic stones, but most monsters at rank 4 and above drop magic stones anyway. They would dismiss this dungeon as a failure in their disappointment and put it behind them, but they would have never imagined in their wildest dreams that an infant who was not even an adventurer had ventured into the dungeon and cleared it before them. Afterwards, this dungeon was classified as an E-class dungeon, and the explanation given for the fact that powerful monsters had appeared below the 4th floor was that the dungeon had simply been left alone by adventurers for too long. And then the dungeon was used to train new adventurers. They were products carefully created by adding metal armor on the outer surface of a monster's hide, but lined with soft monster fur so as to not damage delicate skin. In addition, the mana imbued in them granted all kinds of resistances, so even though they appeared to be thin, fragile items, they were actually sturdier than the average plate armor. The blue high-leg leotard armor has a V-shaped split above the pointed crotch region, leaving the navel and important internal organs beneath it completely exposed. The chest part would probably only cover 2/3 of one's breasts, and the back is also left bare until just above the buttocks. The bikini armor is just as lacking in surface area. It also does not cover more than 2/3 of the breasts, and the bottom part is cut quite low, as if it has been taken into consideration that a beast person with a tail may wish to wear it. But unlike the swimsuit-like torso portions, the shoulder armor, wrist covers and leg guards are properly made. This imbalance causes the wearer to have an immodest appearance, though perhaps they would be a stimulating sight for anyone who sees them. Though, this only applies if a woman is wearing it. It wasn't anything to be concerned about after all. Vandali gave an earnest nod as he examined the high-leg armor and bikini armor before him. Indeed, they were just suits of armor. The high-leg armor housed the spirit of Sam's eldest daughter, Saria. The bikini armor was inhabited by his second daughter, Rita. Both of them were of marriageable age, and according to Sam, they were his 2 adorable daughters who took after their mother. However, now that they inhabited these suits of armor, only these suits of armor could be seen, even for Vandali, who possessed an affinity for the death attribute. However, since their spirits had the appearance of burnt corpses, this was probably for the better. He had also said this when he had used his daughters to haunt these suits of armor to create living armors. Even though these suits of armor were very revealing, not even the tips of his Sam's daughter's pinky fingers would be exposed if they were to be inhabiting these, so there was absolutely no need to worry. Even if one were to try to peek at their chests, they would see not cleavage, but the inner lining of the armor on the other side. Well, I guess it's good enough that I've increased my number of rank 3 allies. Now then, let's get on with the experiments. With these words, Vandali began to pour an excess amount of mana into Saria and Rita. The 2 of them soaked up hundreds of thousands, millions of mana colored black with the death attribute. Exclamation mark. The 2 of them began to tremble, as if writhing in agony, but even after this continued for quite a while, there was no further change. When Vandali checked their statuses, neither their levels nor their rank had changed. They were still a living high-leg armor and a living bikini armor. Although for some reason, this process apparently felt pleasant for them. As I thought, it's no good. He had tried the same thing on Bone Man and the others, but they hadn't undergone any change, though he did get the feeling that their bones were shinier and the cracks in them had disappeared afterwards. But the skeleton general and the living armors he had encountered in the dungeon had become visibly stronger. Maybe you haven't met the requirements for them to increase their rank. Requirements? Yes, I'm not very knowledgeable about how monsters increase their rank, but if it's like how people's jobs work, I think there are requirements besides increasing their level. According to Dasa, job changes sometimes required several conditions other than reaching a certain level. For example, even if an adventurer with the apprentice mage job reached level 100, their skill with magic had to be of a certain standard to advance to being a mage. To be precise, they required at least one skill at level 2 or above. There are other examples that are not limited to skill requirements. A job change to knight requires one to be knighted and one must possess a magic sword in order to become a magic swordsman. Certain ceremonies or prestige and possession of certain items could also be requirements. Also, one needs to be a beast man to become a beast fighter, a requirement that one must be born with. Dasa's suggestion was that perhaps there were similar requirements for monsters to increase their rank. So then, that skeleton general and those living armors had reached the required level to increase their rank, but weren't able to do so because they didn't meet the other requirements. And then when I poured my mana into them, those requirements were fulfilled and they increased rank. Is that right? That might be the case. I see. It did make sense now that Dasa said it. Goblins did not become goblin mages and then learn how to use magic. Goblins with talent for magic who then became proficient with it increased their rank to become goblin mages. In other words, there was no easy shortcut such as pouring mana into the monsters to have them increase their rank. Well then, if any of my undead don't increase their rank after reaching level 100, I'll try it out then. Saria, Rita, thanks for participating in my experiment. Make sure you practice using weapons with everyone later. As Saria and Rita were maids, they naturally had no knowledge about fighting. Therefore, it was necessary to have them undergo training so that they could learn the skills that they needed. For that purpose, Vandali decided to have them choose weapons for themselves. As they were beginners, he had expected them to choose swords or spears, but Saria chose a halberd and Rita took a glaive. There were the items that they had discovered in the dungeon, and though Vandali was unsure exactly what effects they possessed, they were considerably powerful magic items. However, he had the feeling that they were not exactly ideal for amateur fighters. Are you sure you want those? In response to Vandali's question, Saria and Rita swung their weapons through the air and reassured him that it was fine. Perhaps it should be expected of living armors, but they were able to lift these heavy weapons in a way that they would definitely not have been able to do in their previous lives. If you say so, but if it's too difficult, make sure you change to a sword or a spear. If you prefer heavy weapons, there's a cudgel as well. As Vandali said that, the two of them happily, probably, began their training to polish their skills with Bone Man and the others. It was a general rule that skills leveled up as one used them, so they were to make use of the fact that undead needed no sleep or rest in order to carry out their training. With that said, nobody present knew how to use a halberd or a glaive, not even Vandali, so the training simply consisted of trying swinging it downwards, stabbing it forwards like a spear and slashing sideways. This was far less efficient than real battles, but being on a continuous journey while also constantly looking for sources of experience points such as goblins and bandits would be too tiring for Vandali, even if the undead could handle it. Also, he wasn't particularly keen on contributing to the maintenance of peace in the country of Mage. Well then, I'll take care of these walnuts that we picked up yesterday. The sun was still high in the air and Vandali wasn't feeling tired, so a nap could come later. Being the only one to slack off didn't sit well with him either, so he began preparing some walnuts. He had more than enough food, but having salt as his only option for seasoning was getting dull, so he planned to make sauce using the walnuts. He had a vase full of walnuts that had been picked yesterday afternoon. They were still unripe and the fruit was still intact, so eating them as they were was out of the question. He spread them over the ground. They'll need about a month or so, decomposition. And then he used death attribute magic to speed up the decomposition process by a month. The unripe fruit turned black and muddy. Washing away this decomposed fruit with spring water that he had used golems to collect caused the seeds to come out. Peeling their shells finally yielded the walnuts, but he had to be careful not to be impatient and crush them by accident. If that happened, the broken fragments of the shell would become mixed with the walnuts and less of the walnut would be usable. And so he used earth golems to cook them lightly, using a fire that he created by making golems from firewood and having them rub against each other. Doing this made it easier to break the shells. Now all you need to do is split the shells with a knife once they've cooled down. So Dasa advised. As a member of a race that lived in the forest, she was knowledgeable about how to use things that the forest provided. Vandali used a heat leech to cool the walnuts down and then used his nails to split the walnuts. Dasa had told him to use a knife, But lately he had become able to grow his nails to a certain length at will, so he decided to put this ability to practical use. In the future, I might have to use these to fight or something. His late father had been a master of close quarters combat, and had been good at fighting using his claws. Could this be a hereditary trait as well? As Vandali wondered this, Darsa opened her mouth as if she had just thought of something. Future, how do you have something you want to become in the future, Vandali? Future? I want to become a high-class adventurer, build up achievements and become a nobleman. And then I want to become well known in society. The first part is childish, but I have to question the second part. But that's what I need the most, societal fame. Vandali answered her question while loudly splitting the walnut shells with his nails. When Amamiya Hiroto and the others are reincarnated here in the future, even if Rod Corti tells them about me, they won't be able to do anything reckless if I'm well known in society. Vandali had recently come to realize that he had something in common with Amamiya Hiroto and the others. Unable to return to Earth, they would have to live on Lambda until they died. Even with cheat-like abilities, Amamiya and the others would not so easily be able to make the entirety of society their enemy. By being reincarnated here, they would have parents and siblings in this world. They would also likely find friends, and perhaps even lovers. If Vandali was well known in society, they would not be able to lay their hands on him carelessly, as that would cause trouble for their family and everyone involved with them. If Vandali was a nobleman, even more so. Mom, if I have political power and fame, society will become my shield. I think I meant something different with my question. If you didn't have to worry about that Amamiya person and the others, what would your dream be? If I didn't have to worry about those guys, Vandali realized what Darsa was trying to ask. In short, she wanted to know his future dreams, what he wanted to become and what desires he wished to see fulfilled. Innocent dreams, such as children of Earth wishing to become major leaguers or soccer players or movie stars. However, the problem was that Vandali was not a dreaming child. He had a feeling that he admired pilots, a long time ago. However, after coming to live with his uncle's family, he came to admire bodybuilders. He dreamed of owning log-like upper arms and clear abdominal muscles. He imagined that if he became this strong, he could escape his uncle's control. But he felt that this still didn't answer Darsa's question. So what was the answer? In origin, all he could dream of was his own freedom. I want to be happy, I guess. After thinking for a short while, the answer he came up with was a very simple one. As Vandali mashed the peeled walnuts on top of the stone plate, he looked into the distance. I want to be happy, build up a warm family and relationships with others and live in luxury. It was such a common, vague dream, but it was what Vandali truly wanted. It was the ideal that he had yearned for, even before he died on Earth. With that said, the luxury he had in mind wasn't driving around in a Cadillac or Ferrari with a beautiful woman in a passenger seat, wearing top brand clothes and wristwatches, or owning a mansion in the center of the city. Vandali hadn't consciously realized it yet, but he had a deep-rooted complex when it came to luxury. On Earth, when he was called Amamiya Hiroto, his uncle had raised him sternly so that he could become independent once he became an adult. For this reason, he had prohibited any good treatment towards Hiroto and disallowed him any luxuries. Leaving him as the only one to not receive any Christmas or birthday presents was only the beginning of this. And so, during Vandali's time on Earth, he had been denied everything that his uncle had deemed a luxury. Games and toys were luxuries, so even if he borrowed them from friends, he was not allowed to play with them. Whatever was trending at the time was a luxury, so it was banned. Everyone has a yo. Spinning tops are popular. Collecting erasers of different shapes was a game. All banned. If you have any, throw them away right now. Steaks and cakes were also luxuries. Hamburger patties are steaks, so they are a luxury and are banned. Don't eat them, even when the school provides them. If you eat it, you have to throw it up. Bulk packs of products. Making a saving is a luxury, so those are banned. Steak-flavored snacks are banned. Ah, what a pain, but sweet foods are also banned. Eating out is a luxury, so it's banned, whether it's fast food or whatever. Traveling is a luxury, so school trips are banned. Spending leisure time doing what one wants is a luxury, so you have to stay at home by yourself. New clothes are a luxury. As if allergic to luxuries, his uncle had banned every single luxury possible. If the cup ramen and buns from the convenience store so much has had the words luxury or high quality in them, he would be struck with an open palm and be shouted at with words such as indulging in such luxuries when you don't even have parents, don't act so spoiled. It was the absolute worst after a documentary about needy children overseas aired on television. He didn't do anything, but he was suddenly shouted at and asked why he wasn't feeling embarrassed about being so spoiled when there are children suffering like this around the world, and then received multiple strikes. Because of this, all his clothes were handed down from his uncle's children of the same age, and at some point he began having to cook all his own food. His normal behavior was strange, so he was unable to make any friends and nothing good came from having his teachers notice him. In addition to this, his uncle believed that striking a child with a fist might be considered abuse, but using an open palm is discipline, so his uncle never regretted his own use. But using an open palm is discipline, so his uncle never regretted his own actions. Of course, his aunt and cousins did nothing to stop his uncle. Abandoning him was safer for them than trying to interfere. If this treatment was because his uncle's family were poor themselves, then it could be justified. However, they had money. They had Vandal's inheritance from his parents and their life insurance. Also, the reparation fees paid by the person who had caused the accident that took their lives. The total amount was enough to raise 3 children from birth, put them all through private university and still have money left over. In such conditions, the treatment of Vandal was inexcusable. He managed to save money from his part-time job to go on the high school trip, but the boat was sunk by terrorists, which only added insult to injury. It was even more infuriating to think that his uncle had promised that the remainders of his parents' inheritance would be his once he left the house, but now his uncle's family would keep all of it. And then he had lived his second life in origin as a laboratory animal. He didn't even have freedom in this second life, let alone luxuries. That was why Vandal wanted to become happy and live in luxury in this third life. First of all, he wanted to live in a society where he could spend money. I'll decide what's a luxury and what isn't when I arrive in the Orborn Kingdom, though. Really? I think if you become a high-class adventurer, you'll become rich just from that. Yeah, it's fine. I'll kill High Priest Gordon and Hines properly. Yeah, thanks. But you don't have to force yourself, you know? Alright. I'll become strong enough to be able to kill them easily. Alright, Mum. So is it alright for me to feel relaxed about that? Still, don't push yourself, okay? For some reason, Darcy had the feeling that Vandal didn't quite understand what she was trying to say, but she gave up, knowing that her chances of making him understand were low. In fact, becoming a nobleman in the Orborn Kingdom meant that it was likely that High Priest Gordon and Hines, who lived in the Amid Empire and its nations, would become his enemies anyway. If Vandal decided that it was necessary to kill them, then it probably was. The walnuts were complete after adding some herbs that he had obtained from the forests. Vandal wanted to add nice-smelling oil to this, but he had no such oil available. Still, knowing that tonight's dinner would taste better, he gave a satisfied sigh. It sure would be nice to eat some rice instead of burned, hard bread. Thankfully, Vandal's uncle's luxury allergy hadn't extended to banning rice. Vandal hadn't thought anything special about eating rice when eating it on Earth, but now that it had been more than 20 years since he had last eaten it, he missed it. Rice? I think I heard that they make it in the Orborn Kingdom. The countries are sometimes called Amid of bread and Orborn of rice. Seriously? The Orborn Kingdom scored some points in Vandal's heart. Vandal turned 16 months old in October. As autumn began to turn into winter, he finally reached the eastern end of the country of Mage. Further east than this, the land was ruled by nature and filled with devil's nests. Vandal had to get through that and then cross the mountain range. However, as it was ill-advised to attempt to cross the mountain range during winter, Vandal decided to hide in the surrounding forests while attacking nearby bandits until spring, just as he was doing now in a thicket near a devil's nest, waiting for the sun to go down. This was Vandal's plan. Now that I think about it, I've never been skiing before. With my current physical ability, I wonder if I'd be able to learn it quickly. On Vandal's status screen, his physical ability, even the agility that had been his lowest attribute, was now higher than that of a normal adult male. However, it would be reckless for an inexperienced person to attempt to ski on a normal slope. Skiing? Is that also something from Earth? Sam, the dim white silhouette sitting in the coachman's chair, speaks up. This was his spirit form that he had now that he was a ghost carriage. He was holding the reins of similarly spiritual horses. His body was not well defined, like a ghost in a ghost photograph, but Vandal thought that it was much easier to talk to him now compared to before, when he wasn't visible at all. It's a sport on Earth. You put planks on your feet and slide down snowy hills. You don't have it in this world? I have never heard of it. though I have heard of sledding. After talking to Sam and Dasa, Vandali came to realize that on Lambda, sports such as the ones on Earth didn't really exist. To be more specific, there were no sports that one enjoyed for the sake of competition and leisure. They competed in swordsmanship and archery skill, but on the assumption that such skills will be used to fight monsters and participate in wars. The same went for athletics and horse riding. The only exceptions were the things that royalty and noblemen learned for the sake of knowledge. Ball sports such as baseball and soccer, and leisure sports such as surfing and skiing didn't exist in Lambda. It could be assumed that this was because there were many powerful monsters, so there wasn't as much freedom as there was on Earth. It was better to become able to fight than to waste one's physical ability on such sports. With that said, even if competitive sports were not developed, it was surprising that sledding had not progressed into the invention of skis after 10,000 years. This sort of thing was probably the reason that Rod Corti considered this to be an inferior world. Well, it was possible that there was a snowy country that Sam didn't know about. Sam, skiing is dash. As Vandali began explaining what skiing is, he heard a faint voice. A woman's scream? That is what I thought it sounded like. And then the wind brought a faint, pleasant scent that stimulated Vandali's appetite. The smell of blood. In the direction that this wind came from, a woman had let out a scream and was bleeding. In other words, she was being attacked by something. What shall you do? The reason Sam asked this was because Vandali's party's options were not limited to the normal ones of go to help and avoid getting involved. In the country of Mage, all of them were considered monsters that should be exterminated. It was easy to imagine helping this poor woman and being thanked by being brought to an adventurer group that had received a request to exterminate them. Therefore, if Vandali logically considered the risks, he would ignore the scream and continue on with his journey. With that said, now that Sam had learned about Vandali's personality and goals, he doubted that Vandali would choose such an option. Sam, head upwind. Bone Bird, scout up ahead. Bone Man, Saria and Rita, get in the carriage. Vandali's decision was for now, help out if it seems dangerous, and then think about what to do afterwards. It seemed like a wait-and-see approach, but he couldn't decide let's help her and bring the woman back to life if she had already been killed. But on the other hand, he could easily choose the alternative of let's stop helping her at any time and kill her to make sure she didn't talk. Therefore, this choice was logically correct, Vandali thought. G.E. Bone Bird gave a cry as it flapped its spirit wings and took off into the air, and Bone Man, Saria and Rita, who had been busy with their combat training, jumped into the carriage. As you wish, Botchan. The spirit horses began to run at a gentle pace. Sam was one of the few undead who could speak to Vandali, and though he offered his opinions sometimes, he never opposed Vandali's commands. And then Vandali magically linked Bone Bird's vision to his, allowing him to see what Bone Bird saw. As Bone Bird flew higher and higher, he could see several humans doing something at the boundary at which the forest ended and a grass-covered plain began. Because Bone Bird had no eyeballs, or perhaps because Vandali's magic was still not advanced enough, its vision was worse than that of a living bird. Even so, he could vaguely make out the humans' situation. There were 5 of them in total, no, 6. Among them, 3 of them were standing. One of them was collapsed on the ground. One more was straddling that person, and another was crouching down next to her. Other than the one lying on the ground, all of them were men. 3 of them were wearing metal armor. One was in leather armor and the other was in robes. It was one of the ones in metal armor was straddling the person on the ground. Judging from the fact that their equipment was all different, they were likely adventurers. They did seem quite cautious about their surroundings, but that caution was directed towards the Devil's Nest to make sure that no monsters came out of there to attack them. They were not expecting any attack to come from the thicket. Made of only bones and a faintly glowing spirit form, Bone Bird would be difficult to spot in the middle of a sunny day, so there was no chance that it would be noticed while it was scouting. The one lying on the ground was a woman with long hair and an unusual skin color gray-brown. She was half naked and bleeding. The man crouched down next to her reached his hand out to her chest. Sam, use silent steps and go as fast as you can. Let's kill them all, guys. This scene caused Vandali's blood to rush into his head. And then he calmly decided to slaughter all of these men. They seemed to be adventurers, but they were a lowly, bandit-like group. Vandali felt sad. To think that there would be more guys like the blue-flamed sword Heims in a place like this. Did the adventurers of this country have no morals? Certainly. Botchan. Sam swung the reins up and down, and the carriage's speed suddenly increased. However, This didn't cause the carriage to shake, and the sound it produced was unbelievably small. The raw road travel skill made it possible to use the high-speed travel skill even on the unpaved surface of the field. The noise that was supposed to be produced by the hoofs of the spiritual horses that were a part of Sam's body was erased by the silent step skill. In addition, the carriage should have been shaking violently, but this was prevented by the impact resistance skill. Sam was a carriage filled with cheats. Vandally thought that he could become a high-class limousine. Bone Bear, Bone Wolf and Bone Monkey were running alongside the carriage at wild speeds. Bone Man, you wait for my signal and then use your bow to get a preemptive strike on the one in leather armor. He's probably a thief, so he'll be hard to track down if he gets away. Sam could probably chase him down, but just in case, I'll make the robe one that looks like a mage powerless. The rest of you, take each of the armored ones on 2-on-1. As Vandally spoke, he gave a sideward glance at Bone Man, who was knocking an arrow in his bow. Right, let's save that girl. That was the good thing to do. Name, Saria. Rank, 3. Race, living high leg armor. Level, 1. Passive skills, special 5 senses. Physical ability enhancement, level 2, new. Water element resistance, level 2, new. Physical attack resistance, level 2, new. Active skills, housework, level 2, name, Rita. Rank, 3. Race, living bikini armor. Level, 1. Passive skills, special 5 senses. Physical ability enhancement, level 2, new. Fire element resistance, level 2, new. Physical attack resistance, level 2, new. Active skills, housework, level 1. Monster explanation, living armors. These are suits of armor inhabited by evil spirits. Most of them are inhabited by spirits of soldiers, knights or adventurers who experienced fighting with armor on during their lifetimes, but few of them retain their memories and personalities. Most of them simply attack the living indiscriminately. Their strength depends on the armor they inhabit and the weapons they hold, but living armors made from chainmail and half-plate armor are rank 3. Ones made from full-plate armor are classified as rank 4. There are rare cases where living armors are made from magic items, but in those cases, the rank depends on the features of those magic items. As proof that one has eliminated a living armor, the magic stone that almost always drops regardless of the living armor's rank is used. The materials that can be obtained from a living armors are the armor that was possessed and the weapons and shields that were used. Since they are covered in mana, there is a chance that these items become magic items. Using these items as they are is dangerous, as there is a chance that the bearer becomes cursed, but purifying them makes them safe to use. Saria and Ritu are inhabiting suits of armor that are magic items, but as they are maids who never experienced using weapons during their lifetime, their skill levels and rank are appropriately low. However, this does not harm the functions of the armor itself, so their defensive and resistance skills are unaffected. Skill explanation, mental corruption. This is a skill that represents mental derangement, the depth of one's trauma and the severity of phobias. It also functions as a skill that protects one's mind from the effects of poison, curses and magic. However, many organizations that encourage the acquisition of this skill are connected to underground organizations or are underground organizations themselves. In urban areas, this skill is considered to be an illness, and specialized facilities exist to treat it. Many individuals who possess this skill are abnormal sadists and murderers, soldiers and adventurers who have experienced horrific battles and assassins who have become unable to feel discomfort and guilt when killing people. However, as there are also many artists and inventors who possess the skill and have left behind their names and deeds in history books, there are few cases where one is imprisoned simply for possessing the skill. Chapter 11. Did you think you'd saved a beautiful girl? That day, Zadiris was holding a study meeting with the young girls from the village to teach them about grasses, fruits and mushrooms that could be used for making medicine or food. Many of the race that Zadiris and her group belonged to did not place a high priority on passing on their knowledge, but she knew the importance of teaching the younger generation these things and often talked about it to the people around her, so the people of her village were likely aware as well. The reason she was only bringing girls with her was the great difference in appearance and characteristics between the two sexes in her race. Males were well suited to fighting and manual labor, while women did work that required thinking. Though this was a general rule, she had already taught the smarter men in the village enough, so she didn't bring them with her today. Of course, just because monsters weren't attacking didn't mean that she let her guard down. Zadaris herself was confident in her strength and magic, and their study meeting was happening just at the edge of the forest. Strong monsters wouldn't appear, and at this time of year, adventurers shouldn't come this way either. She went that way. Cheat, she's fast. Don't let her get away. However, the reason things had turned out like this was because she had let her guard down after all. They were found by a group of 5 adventurers. Be careful, she's a mage, a high-class one. Don't let your guard down. I know. We let all of the others escape. If we don't catch this one, we won't make it through the winter. Zadaris had succeeded in using her magic to confuse the adventurers and allow the other girls to escape. However, she had expended too much mana in doing so, to the point that it would be difficult to defeat the adventurers if she fought them now. With that being the case, her only option was to run, but dash, ha, ha, ha. Her breathing became quick, like that of a dog or a wild animal. Her heart was pounding painfully, but she couldn't do anything about it. To think that I've run out of breath already. I guess I can't win against time. As Zadaris lamented her old age, an arrow flew across just to her side. As the adventurers took aim at her, she reflexively spun her body to the right. 3 seconds later, her feet were standing on empty air. She was at the edge of a cliff. It was a small cliff on the boundary of the forest. It was a cliff of a height such that one wouldn't die by jumping off it, and one would normally be able to make a safe landing in the forest. However, this time it was fatal. Zadaris, losing her balance, hit the cliff's slope like a ball and began rolling down. She crashed into the ground and landed face down. She tried to stand up, but she couldn't put any strength into her legs and arms. Despite the fact that her life was in danger, they demanded rest and refused to obey her commands. She was already winded, but this was the effect of leaving the devil's nest. She was really feeling her age taking its toll on her. Well, this is fine. The clan will not perish just because I am gone. Her successor had already been nominated. There were reliable men. She had managed to let the young ones with the future on their shoulders escape. Considering that she had only 10 years or so remaining in her life, hadn't she done pretty well? It was probably better for her to die already, before she became any more senile than she already was. Several laughing voices and sets of footsteps came closer. It was the adventurers. From here, they would certainly finish her off and collect the magic stone and her body parts that would become raw materials. She didn't really care about this. She had done the same thing countless times herself. She hadn't gone out of her way to do so, but she had even killed adventurers in the past. She harbored no grudge against them. They should finish her quickly. Zadaris quietly stayed face down and closed her eyes, but the adventurers grabbed her legs and turned her face up. If they wanted to kill her, they could have stabbed her in the back, so why? As Zadaris thought this, she opened her eyes to see the adventurers looking down at her with vulgar smiles on their faces. Hey, I thought this while we were chasing her, but isn't she quite the pretty woman? You think so? I like mine a little more grown up. Nobody asked about what you like. What's important is whether we'll be able to sell her at a high price. Zadaris had thought that they were perhaps inspecting the materials that they would be harvesting before they killed her, but upon hearing the word sell, she realized that this was not the case. The females of these creatures can be sold to underground slave traders for quite a lot. Thanks to that, we'll be able to take it easy during this year's winter. The adventurers hadn't been chasing her around to kill her and harvest raw materials from her, but to capture her alive and sell her to a slave trader. Zadaris opened her eyes wide. Being defeated and killed was one thing, but she wouldn't allow herself to become a sex slave and treated as a plaything until she died. You bastards. Oh, she understands language. I suppose that's to be expected of mages. This one should sell for even more than the market price. Zadaris bared her fangs and glared at them, but the smiles of the adventurers looking down on her only widened. She mustered what was left of her strength and tried to take at least one of them down. But one of the adventurers stabbed her with a knife. Violent pain flooded through Zadaris's body. Her vision turned pure white, and she couldn't help but let out a girlish scream. It hurts, huh? You guys are pretty tough when it comes to dealing with pain, but this knife is a magic item with the pain up enchantment. Being cut by this knife will hurt 3 times more than usual. A little while ago, we caught a bandit and all we had to do was give him a light cut with this knife for him to spit out where his base was. Haha. By the time Zadaris had recovered a little from the violent pain, her willpower fell along with the tears from her eyes. I bet you've done it plenty, right? With that being the case, isn't it alright to have a taste of the goods before we sell you off? Hey, if you're not careful, you're going to get scratched. It's fine, but don't go overboard. And be quick about it, it'll be a pain if other monsters were to come. One of the adventurers lowered himself onto Zadaris to straddle her and began taking off her clothes. He exposed her grey-brown breasts and grabbed hold of them, but she didn't give the response that the man desired. Tch. Dissatisfied, the man reached for the knife that was still stuck inside Zadaris. Hi-ei. Thinking that she would experience that intense pain again, Zadaris tried to scream, but Jr. The thief that had been watching to make sure that no monsters came out of the forest gave a hoarse grunt. There was an arrow protruding from the thief's back. Zadaris immediately thought that her allies from the village had come to save her. It seemed the adventurers thought the same. They've come to save her? Including the man that was straddling Zadaris, their warriors among the adventurers pulled out their weapons and faced the forest. However, the robed mage gave a shout as he pulled the arrow out from the thief. You morons. It didn't come from the forest, it's from behind us. Before the mage's eyes was a carriage moving at incredible speed while making very little sound, and a group of beasts made of bones. Undead monsters? Why are they coming from the plain and not from the devil's nest? Who cares? More importantly, there's one of them with a bow and arrows. Hurry up and get in front of me. Shouting at his flustered shield-holding companion, the thief who had managed to avoid a fatal wound thanks to his leather armor put a potion to his mouth. And as the adventurers prepared to have him recover from his injury, Vandali's army attacked. Bone Man knocked another arrow into his bow and fired a second shot, but the thief managed to dodge it. It couldn't be helped, as Bone Man's skill with the bow was level 1. Vandali's options for long-ranged attacks were too limited. Perhaps he should have had Saria and Rita learn archery as well. As this thought ran through his mind, he released his spell towards the mage who seemed to be chanting an incantation. Magic Absorption Barrier. A black mass of mana flew towards the mage. He immediately tried to block it with some kind of defensive spell, but the black mass absorbed and nullified it completely. That ghost carriage used some kind of strange magic. What the hell is this? The black mass covered the mage like a dome, but for now, it seemed that it wasn't doing him any damage. Don't worry about that, hurry up and chant your spell. The ones at the front holding swords, spears, axes and shields stepped forward to meet the enemy. But in the next moment, their well-prepared front line crumbled. Ha! If you will not fall back, then I shall trample you. Sam, sitting in the driver's seat of the ghost carriage, gave a shout as he ordered an increase in speed. The faint, white horses gave a neigh as the carriage closed in on them at incredible speed. Ka-ouaj! You-won! As the man with the shield gave a shout, the adventurers all jumped out of the way of Sam's path. No matter how powerful their defense was, even if they possessed shielding techniques such as Stone Shield and Stone Wall, they wouldn't be able to stop the high-speed travel plus charge combo of Sam, a 3-horse carriage. Because they reacted quickly, they succeeded in avoiding Sam in time, and Sam performed a magnificent drift turn just 2 meters away from Zadaris's feet. This was something that he was only able to do because the spirit horses were a part of him. The carriage should have been shaking violently. But thanks to the impact-resistance skill, everyone inside was able to remain standing with the exception of Vandali. And as the adventurers' formation collapsed, Bone Wolf, Bone Bear and Bone Monkey attacked. The adventurers seemed quite skilled, each of them managed to avoid the first attack and retake their stances with their weapons ready. With Bone Bird's talon attacks coming from above and Bone Man joining the fray after leaping out of the carriage, things weren't just looking bad for them, it was downright disastrous. What are rank 3 monsters doing outside the devil's nest? How the hell should I know? Single flash. Oi, how long is that support magic going to take? One of the men somehow managed to block a swing of Bone Bear's front paw that was powerful enough to break his shield, another had his basic swordsmanship skill single brandish avoided by Bone Monkey, and the last was shouting at the mage that seemed to be taking forever to cast his support magic without turning back to look at him. Oh flames, gather forth in my hand, it's no good. My magic, my mana is being absorbed so I can't use magic. The mage was clearly chanting a spell, but every time he drew his mana forth from inside his body, it was taken away from him. That was the effect of Vandalius magic absorption barrier. If one attempted to use magic within the barrier, the mana was stolen away before the spell could be completed. To overcome the effects of such a barrier, one must release a sheer amount of mana that the barrier simply couldn't absorb, use an anti-barrier spell or simply move at a speed at which the barrier cannot follow him. but only a master mage would be able to overcome the barrier that Vandali had poured an overwhelming amount of mana into. Of course, it was impossible for this mage with his current mana pool and magic. Damn it. What's with this guy? Where am I supposed to attack? On one side, the thief was fighting against Saria and Rita. Normally, the thief with inferior pure fighting ability would be at a disadvantage fighting against two monsters head-on. However, Saria and Rita were barely able to swing their weapons, and it was not difficult for the agile thief to avoid their attacks. But it was difficult for the thief to attack them with his dagger. If they were normal living armors, defeating them would be simple. By inserting the dagger into the gaps between the armor pieces and destroying the joint between the helmet and the torso, he would be able to separate them into pieces. Unfortunately for him, neither Saria nor Rita possessed a helmet portion. In Rita's case, the torso proportion of the armor was already separated into two pieces. Trying to separate the armors into pieces would be impossible, as the living high leg armor and living bikini armor were already in pieces. Where's the head? Where are the vital points? Godomit. Jayar. He tried to stay calm, but his companions at the front were at a disadvantage already. Their mage had been made useless. And then the bewildered thief let out a scream that sounded like a dog as Sam sent him flying like a rubber ball. The adventurers, given no chance to turn the battle back around, lay on the ground as corpses. The only casualties for Vandali's party were several broken bones on Bone Wolf and Bone Bear, and Vandali's own injury that he sustained while rolling around in the carriage. I am terribly sorry, Botchan. I said it's fine. It'll heal soon anyway. There was a deep, bleeding gash on Vandali's forehead, but as he possessed the rapid healing skill, it would heal within a few days. As for the broken bones, they were easily repaired as Vandali had recently discovered that he can use death attribute magic to restore them. In the end, their losses were basically non-existent. Phew, looks like I need to reflect upon my actions. However, Vandali was reflecting on his rash decision to attack these adventurers. The reason he won this battle easily was because his surprise attack had gone well, he had used death attribute magic that they had never seen before, and because they weren't all that skilled. He had checked the guild cards that were the identification documents issued by the Adventurers Guild, and according to those, these adventurers were D-class. If they had been class or higher, it was likely that he would have had the tables turned on him. Attacking adventurers whose strength he couldn't judge at a glance was a dangerous move. However, the option of leaving a girl to be attacked by these thugs was out of the question. Next time, we'll do our surprise attack better. End of self-reflection. Leaving the tasks of stripping the adventurers of their belongings, taking care of their corpses and gathering information from their spirits until later, the first thing to do was to help the girl who had been attacked. When he had used his sense life earlier, she had not been in a state where she might die soon, but she had been greatly weakened. This was where the potions that he had acquired in the dungeon that he had kept just in case came in handy. Zadiris was fully prepared to be killed at this point. It was not her allies who had killed the adventurers, but undead. So she thought that the undead would kill her next. Are you alright? So she had thought. But time passed and the undead didn't attack her. Not only that, but an infant with blood dripping from his forehead was speaking to her. She was astonished, bewildered and fearful that this infant might be some kind of dead person's ghost. And because of the strong, stinging pain from the wound in which the knife was still inserted, she was unable to answer his question. As Vandali looked down at Zadiris, he thought, her skin color is unusual, but she is a cute girl, She seemed to be in her mid or late teenage years. Her lovely features and wet eyes made Vandali want to protect her. Her physical appearance was such that she would have easily been able to make a debut as an idol on Earth. Her grey-brown skin was unusual, but this was another world, after all. It might not even be considered unusual here. Even her exposed breasts I shouldn't look at any more than that. Vandali quickly averted his eyes away from the girl's chest. Leaving his mental age aside, his physical body was that of an infant, so fortunately he had not yet experienced sexual desire, though it would have been fine as long as his gaze didn't become a lewd one. Well, his eyes were as lifeless as those of the undead, and his gaze instilled fear more than embarrassment and disgust. Not realizing this, Vandali thought that the treatment of her wound came first, and reached out for the handle of the knife. Wait, stop. But this knife was a magic item that increased the pain it inflicted. Knowing that pulling it out would cause that violent pain once more, Zadiris tried to stop Vandali's hand. Painlessness. Knowing that she was in pain, Vandali used death attribute magic to erase the pain that she experienced. As Zediris was bewildered by the sudden disappearance of the pain, Vandali pulled the knife from her abdomen in one movement. And then he poured the 3rd class potion on the wound. The wound closed in a ridiculous fashion. The deep opening that pierced through her flesh closed before his very eyes to become new, smooth skin. There was not even the slightest sign that there had been a wound there. Surgically treating such a wound and the plastic surgery required to remove the skull left afterwards on Earth would take a great deal of time and effort, but on Lambda, it was done by applying a single potion. In this regard, Lambda was more advanced than Earth, thought Vandali. Though he probably wouldn't have thought so if he knew just how much that 3rd class potion was worth. My name is Vandali. Should I prepare water to wash your body and clothes to change into? He spoke to the girl looking up at him with a dumbfounded expression. She was probably in a state of shock. It was to be expected, as she had just been stabbed by a thug and almost raped. On Earth, a female police officer would handle this kind of situation. The only females here were Dasa, whom only Vandali and the undead could see, and Saria and Rita, who simply appeared to be floating suits of armor, so one might not immediately assume that they were females. Therefore, by process of elimination, the only one who could offer Zediris support was Vandali. Though I think that I'm definitely the wrong person in the wrong place for this job. In both lifetimes on Earth and in Origin, he hadn't really interacted with members of the opposite sex, so there was no way that he could handle a delicate task like supporting a sexual assault victim. As if proving this correct, tears welled up in the girl's eyes. Her face had been wet with tears and sweat since before her wound was healed, but she appeared as if she was going to burst into tears again. Akiwa. And sure enough, she burst into tears and held on to Vandali tightly. She was so forceful that Saria and Rita reflexively attempted to recover Vandali from Zediris's arms. Vandali waved them down with his hand, and was being hugged at her mercy. That wasn't quite right. She was much stronger than she appeared. She wasn't forceful enough to break his bones, but it was hard to breathe. Her fingernails were digging into him. It's quite painful, but it's nothing compared to the reconstruction surgery and human experiments I endured in Origin. He tried to endure it, but he really didn't have the freedom to be happy about being hugged by a cute girl. You really saved me. You saved my life. Not only did you defeat the adventurers, but you even used a precious potion on my wound. I do not know how to thank you. I see. Vandali and his party were making their way through the Devil's Nest. They had waited until Zediris had calmed down, stripped the adventurers of their equipment and then ventured into the Devil's Nest. My apologies, the village is a little further. In order to take Zediris home. The reason that her village was in the middle of a devil's nest ruled by monsters was that she belonged to a race generally considered to be monsters. We ghouls are resistant to pain, but that magic item put me through hell. On top of that, they were going to turn me into a sex slave and sell me off. Humans are scary. Indeed, Zediris was a ghoul. Judging from the color of her skin, Vandali had thought that she might not be one of the races of people, but he hadn't imagined that she would be a ghoul. However, as Vandali sat in Zediris's lap wrapped in her arms, he felt uncomfortable with just how different she was to the image of ghouls that he had in his mind. Ghouls are not undead? The image of ghouls in Vandali's mind was that of undead monsters with long claws and fangs, strength greater than that of zombies, and a love for feasting on dead flesh. However, he could feel the comforting warmth from her body that he hadn't felt since Dasa had died, and his sense life Eskel detected life in her. She might not be a human, but she was definitely a living creature. Botchan, we ordinary people are told that ghouls are higher class zombies, not very different from vampires. According to Sam, ghouls were treated like an inferior species of vampires. They lived and had children. However, they were powerful monsters that attacked people, had great physical strength and resistance to pain and secreted venom at the claws of their hands and feet. And they apparently turned freshly killed corpses into members of their own kind in some evil ceremony. We are not higher class zombies, but you are half correct, Sam. But according to Zediris, the reality was quite different. Ghouls were apparently not an inferior species of vampire, but their lesser relatives. To put it simply, the founder of her schools was the twin brother of the founder of vampires, or perhaps his younger sister. That means that ghouls are also children of the goddess Vida. But ghouls weren't mentioned in the legend that Mom told me. Well, I do not know the details, but this is something I heard from the eldest member of the generation before last. According to the legend that Vandali heard from Dasa, Vida birthed Lamias, Silas, Harpies, Arachne and Centaurs, but nothing about ghouls being among those monsters. Well, it wasn't like Dawson knew everything, and it was the kind of story whose contents would differ slightly from region to region. It seemed that the ghouls of Zadaris's village believed in Zadaris's story, but that didn't mean that they were particularly friendly towards humans. Nobody would want to try to become friends with people that branded them as monsters and tried to kill them. In fact, Zadaris had killed numerous adventurers in the past, and lost companions to them. But to think that they would sell me as a sex slave. If I was simply going to be killed, I would have accepted it and given up. Becoming a target for the sexual desires of humans had apparently been a shocking experience for Zadaris. However, unbeknownst to her, the reality was that this kind of thing was not unusual in underground societies. If a monster species existed that only differed from humans by their skin tone and a small part of their bodies, then it was only natural that humans would think to buy and sell the females of that species as sex slaves. For heaven's sake, it is not as if they would think the same about a female orc. Do you not agree? In response to this question, Vandali looked up at her and shook his head sideways. I think you are very attractive. Even after learning that Zadaris was a ghoul and re-evaluating her, she was still lovely in Vandali's eyes. He thought that her yellow pupils and grey-brown skin were exotic, and her fangs resembled Yuba, so he found them cute. With her young-looking, curved cheeks and captivating lips, it wouldn't have been strange if she became Vandali's first love if he had been a little older. Vandali felt like he was missing out, but putting that aside, Zadaris would have been worth an incredible amount as a slave. So it is possible that those men attacked you not because they are fine with any women, but because they had their eyes on you from the very beginning. You should be careful from now on. Is something wrong? No, it is nothing. In response to Vandali saying that she was attractive, Zadaris's heart began to throb violently for some reason. Despite thinking, wait, what am I thinking about a child young enough to be called a baby? Her heart didn't stop pounding. What a strange boy. He commands the undead and uses unknown magic. And when he stares at me directly, I feel strange. Could this be the charming gaze of the vampires? Her knowledge about dampers was far from complete, so she somewhat misunderstood her own feelings towards Vandali. It seems that is indeed the case. I shall have to take care from now on. I must also warn the women of the village. Someone like me with few years left to live was targeted. There is no guarantee that the younger ones will not be targeted as well. Zadaris was the eldest member of the ghoul community. She was apparently 290 years old this year. And the lifespan of a ghoul was apparently 300 years. It seemed that she was not lying when she said that she didn't have long to live. When Vandali had used his sense life skill, he had felt a weak reaction from Zadaris. This was not because of the knife that she had been stabbed by at the time, but because of her age. Though I don't think adventurers would be able to tell a ghoul's true age. Though she had the lively skin of a teenager without a single wrinkle, Zadaris gave a sigh as Vandali said this to her. I suppose one becomes accustomed to this fact as one lives life as a ghoul. As ghoul women's physical appearance stops changing at the age we bear our first child, but most people in the village have a good idea of how old the women are. What is wrong, boy? Are you sleepy? No, Vandali looked down and sighed, feeling disappointment in response to Zadaris's words for a reason that he himself didn't know. Is that so? In that case, I would like you to promise me something now. Would you keep the fact that I sobbed like a small girl a secret? Of course, Sam don't know as well. I don't mind. I simply obey Bochin's commands. My endless thanks. Ah, it seems that something has approached us while we were talking. Though they had been having calm conversation, Vandali's party was traveling through a Devil's Nest right now. It was inhabited by monsters in far greater density and numbers than in ordinary forests and wastelands. But as Bone Man and Bone Wolf were guarding Sam's surroundings, only a single foolish goblin had attacked them and been quickly cut down. Using sense life as Zadaris instructed him to, he felt reactions from about a dozen human-sized or slightly larger creatures about 50 meters ahead. However, there was no reaction from the constantly active danger sense, death, so it seemed that it was not a group of bloodthirsty monsters waiting to ambush them. Bochin? Just keep going forward for now, I suppose. Because they were in a forest, having Bone Bird scout from the sky was likely to be ineffective, so he simply decided to wait and see what would happen. From the shadows of the trees and bushes, monsters emerged. The monsters had a roughly human-like shape. However, their heads were those of lions, proud, ferocious-looking kings of the forest with bare fangs and disheveled manes. The skin below their necks was grey-brown, and the length of their arms stood out to the eye. Their arms were so long that their fingers would reach the ground even if they stretched their backs up to stand up straight. However, one could also not overlook the fact they possessed the tough, flexible musculature of wild carnivores. Even though the goblins were humanoid monsters just like them, these were clearly different from goblins. However, for some reason, these monsters approached not with the intent to kill, but feelings of bewilderment. "Ah, everyone, you have come out to greet me." With those words, Zadiris stood up, still holding Vandali in her arms. "Elder Sama, we were going to help, but why have you brought undead with you? We are happy that you are safe, but what are these things?" The monsters spoke with a low tone that sounded like growling, but also quite skillfully considering that they were doing so with the mouths of lions. As Vandali was feeling just as bewildered as they were about the current situation, Sam whispered to him. "Botchan, I have heard that ghoul male and fey men and women are greatly different in their appearances. Though this is my first time seeing it for myself. Zadiris completely resembled a human other than her fangs and the color of her skin. But on the other hand, the appearance of the men was not human at all, even though they were all of the same race. Yes, I was in danger when adventurers attacked me, but I was saved by this boy. The undead are under this boy's command. That small boy defeated the adventurers? And he commands the undead?" In response to Zadiris's words, the ghoul men exchanged looks of disbelief. Well, even Vandali thought that the truth would be difficult to believe right away. And then an enormous ghoul appeared from deeper within the forest, even larger than the other male ghouls, standing 2 meters tall. He was wearing leather armor made from the hide of a monster, and his mane was adorned with a brilliant bird feather decoration. On his back, he carried an enormous battle axe that looked as if it could cut a bear in half. This ghoul was likely the leader among the males. "Vigoro, you came out as well. I have told you many times that the chief of the village should not leave it so easily. You're still the chief, Zadiris. If the chief is in danger, then it's only normal for me, the leader of the warriors, to step forth. You are the effective chief. Even if I die, as long as you are still here, the village will thrive on." "Effective chief. The village will thrive on? What kind of nonsense are you saying? Did you hit your head when the adventurers attacked you? I will retract my words. You clueless fool, you shall need to train that brain of yours for a while later." "Retract? I'll have you know, I've been training my brain. And before that, I defeated an orc with a headbutt." As Vigoro threw out his chest with pride, Zadiris gave a deep sigh. Her breath tickled the back of Vandali's head. Still, the ghoul called Vigoro possessed log-like upper arms. How did one acquire that much muscle? Vandali really wanted to know. "So what are you planning to do with the child?" "Of course, we will make him welcome at our village. This boy is very generous, he says that he will even provide the meat fairs to have a banquet. There is no problem with that, is there?" "Grr." Vigoro tilted his head in response to Zadiris's reply. In normal circumstances, she would never allow a member of another race to enter the village, even if he had saved her life. In the first place, since the ghouls lived in a devil's nest, every other species existed simply as their enemies and prey. It wasn't unusual for ghouls of separate villages to kill each other in some cases. That was why Zadiris and Vigoro advocated for the exclusion of outsiders. For the sake of survival, this was the correct choice. Vigoro had noticed that Vandali was a damp. He was also interested in the meat that Vandali was supposedly offering. However, his feelings of danger about having the location of the village known by an outsider were stronger. He felt no hostility at all from Vandali, who was looking up at Zadiris with eyes as lifeless as the eyeballs floating in orc soup. No, something was strange. He wanted those dead-looking eyes to look at him, he wanted to do something for this child. Vigoro consciously realized that he was beginning to feel this way. "If it's too much trouble, then we can just be on our way." As Vandali said those words, Vigoro and the ghoul men under his command let out a small growl as they felt the sensation of their chests tightening. They felt feelings of guilt, as well as discomfort at the fact that Vandali would simply leave if they did not stop him. "It's not too much trouble. We'll lead you to our village, please let us welcome you there." Vigoro immediately shouted this response. The other men cheered in agreement. "Vandali, you're our guest, so we'll welcome you. Grrr. And then Vigoro looked up at the sky and let out a beast-like roar. As Vandali was shocked by the loud roar that caused the air to vibrate, Zadiris spoke to him. He is communicating with the people in the village. He is telling them that the chief is safe. There is a guest coming and that they should make preparations for a feast. And so Vandali was welcomed into a friendly community for the first time in his life. Name, Zadiris. Rank, 5. Race, Ghoul Mage level, 100 job, non-job level, 100 job history, non-age, 290 years old. Passive skills, night vision pain resistance, level 3 superhuman strength, level 1 paralyzing venom secretion, claws, level 2 increased mana recovery rate, level 4 active skills, light attribute magic, level 4 wind attribute magic, level 2 no attribute magic, level 2 mana control, level 5 alchemy, level 2 status effects. Old Age. Monster explanation. Ghoul mages. These are ghouls that have learned magic past a certain level. Their skills are beyond those of inexperienced adventurers, and they are still excellent at close quarters combat due to their physical ability and the paralyzing venom of their claws. They are more intelligent than other ghouls. Most ghoul mages are in high societal positions such as being the head of a family or a staff officer. Because of this, there are almost none that act on their own, and they often have multiple subordinate ghouls serving them. For this reason, the Adventurers Guild recommends that adventurers form parties if they are planning to eliminate them. The item that one uses to prove that he has eliminated a ghoul mage is the ghoul's right ear. Materials that can be harvested include the claws of all 4 limbs, the eyeballs and tongues that are infused with mana, the liver which can be used in medicines, and the spinal cord which can be used as a catalyst in alchemy. Ghoul mages are among the most dangerous of rank 5 monsters, so there are many adventurers who believe that the reward for eliminating them and the amount that the ingredients sell for is not worth the effort. As many ghoul mages are female, they are worth a lot in the underground slave market. However, selling them this way requires one to capture them alive, which is more dangerous, and more often than not, the ghoul mage can turn the tables on the hunter. The ghoul mages bought and sold in the underground market often teach magic to the other female ghouls, causing them to increase their rank. In order to increase in rank and become a ghoul mage, a ghoul requires a level 3 skill in at least one attribute of magic. Zadaris possesses excellent mastery over magic for a ghoul mage, but her stamina and mana have declined as a result of her own age, which means that her effectiveness in combat has significantly decreased. Chapter 12.
Alright guys, so this is as far as I will go for today. Thank you again for watching and for listening to the audiobook that I chose today. So yeah, uh, so I started uh, the values, shadings, and lighting for this design. Hopefully, I can properly distribute the proper values uh, next time. And so far, the shapes are uh, doing really well right now. Around here is the horizon line, if I'm right. Let's see. Oops. Okay. See if we can bring it up here. Come on. I think I've made a lot of layers. So yeah, this is the horizon line around here. Okay. So mhm. So yeah. Okay. So after this, uh, next time I will continue the shading for this one and exploring some other ways to improve this more. Uh, I'll keep it as simple as possible. And, one of my mistakes when doing this kind of values and shadings is sometimes I start blending it. As you can see, I'm using some textured brush already. So next time I'll try to put more solid lighting instead of using blends at the very beginning next time. But yeah, the foreground and the beach, I think it's okay that I use some texture brush for that. Because it's the foreground. It's not very important uh, to be solid. I think it's kind of neat adding this texture just to give it a feeling that it's sand or something. Okay. Um, so yeah, that will be the plan next time. Finishing the values for this one. Anyway, about the story, I guess it's getting really interesting because one of this the things that I really like about this story is about the revenge arc of this entire series because the MC went through a very traumatic and very problematic life, two lives actually. Now, his third life, hopefully, that he won't go through a lot of pain anymore because now he has a family and he's building it really nicely. And now he's meeting up to new characters that he will be friends with. And yeah, look forward to more of the story that will come in the near future. There will be a lot of more characters and stuff that will entertain us while I do my drawing. So yeah, so this is our pretty much all I can say to you guys today, and I'll try to draw as soon as possible in these coming days. Hopefully, there won't be any issues with my um, with my schedule. So yeah, see you again next time. This is your boy Shrimp, the Prodigal Shrimp, and I'll be signing off. See you again.